To say Christian nationalism is having a moment right now might be a bit of an understatement, mostly because that moment has lasted more than a minute in Idaho. One just has to look at the abortion ban that was passed in 2020 and the legislation passed since then with regard to Idaho's LGBTQ plus community. The transgender athlete ban, the bathroom bill, the gender affirming care bill, the pronoun bill, and the library bill, which was focused on books with LGBTQ themes. All of those laws have come at the direction and guidance of conservative religious lobbyists like the Heritage Foundation, Alliance Defending Freedom, and the Idaho Family Policy Center. While the Christian nationalism movement has been getting serious consideration recently, nationally, it's been literally and figuratively gaining ground in the Gem State's original college town for many years, which is why the movement and Moscow is the center of a locally produced podcast where those leading the crusade are not shying away from sharing their plan.
I think the Christian faith is the ideal moral doctrine and principles for a thriving society.
Christian nationalism is the focus of a new season of Extremely American.
So theocracy is an inescapable concept.
Pride parades absolutely would be illegal.
A podcast hosted by Boise reporter Heath Druzin.
With Christ Church, everything spoken is sort of fact.
Heath learned if your target is an American theocracy, it helps to aim first at small-town America.
Welcome to Moscow!
They want to make Moscow, Idaho, an explicitly Christian town. They want Moscow, Idaho to run by Christian principles.
They are the leaders and members of Moscow's Christ Church, a Calvinist congregation under Pastor Doug Wilson.
They want basically everything in the town to have the Bible as a foundation and the Bible as they see it, as they interpret it.
Christ Church has been at the forefront of the Christian nationalist movement, a topic at first Heath wasn't too eager to tackle.
And all of a sudden, mainstream politics and Christian nationalism are intersecting.
We are going to take this nation back for the glory of God, then we are going to lose it all, ladies and gentlemen, because when we lose the church, we lose society.
And what they want to do beyond Moscow, way beyond Moscow, is they want America to be a theocracy. And they don't mean a majority Christian nation demographically. What they mean is they want the U.S. government to run according to biblical principles, and they want anything that they see as unchristian to not be part of society.
In the podcast, Moscow is the petri dish for this push toward biblical policies.
Moscow's kind of a blueprint for the bigger picture.
They're not hiding anything.
No. What I'm telling you is not my interpretation. It's what their leaders said into my microphone.
I'm the senior minister at Christ Church in Moscow, Idaho. I've been serving in that function since 1977, and you all have my permission to use whatever is recorded here.
Heath says he spent a year looking into what's happening in Moscow and spent hours with Pastor Doug Wilson.
And when they started to talk to me, what I realized was they're very proud of what they're doing. They think they're in the right. They think they're literally on a mission from God. But you'll hear in the podcast from these guys, you won't hear me saying, this is what they think. You'll hear them saying, this is what we think. You get the blueprint from the people who are planning this takeover.
What especially worries some people in Moscow is their ideas. And Doug has a lot of ideas.
In your ideal America, do non-Christians get to hold office?
No.
Okay. And can women vote?
It depends. So in our church, in our polity, households vote.
And in Doug's world, the head of the household is almost always a man.
Okay, but that means ultimately it's the man's decision unless a woman's husband has died or she is
Unmarried or, yeah. Right.
What it essentially means is that most women don't get to vote.
However, through elections, Heath discovered, is how the church plans to gain a tighter grip on the town. That and entrepreneurial expansion.
We estimate about 20% of downtown Moscow is owned by either Christ Church or their members.
Which has led to some conscious choices on where locals spend their money in this college town.
There's definitely more of a schism and more of a them and us kind of thing.
So what stood out to you? What did you learn from this?
So what stood out to me was I had this notion of these patriarchal ideas that, men should lead, women should be obedient. I kind of knew that. What I didn't understand is that it's not just an idea, it's the idea for a lot of these folks. It's the foundational idea for them, for society.
When you say women's suffrage, it sounds like you're saying it was a mistake. Do you think that they should not have the right to vote, period?
It really drives so much of what they do and what they want America to look like. And I think everybody should pay close attention to that. Obviously, women in particular, I don't know that people quite understand how much of a radical shift in your citizenship that would look like. Part of the reason this is so important is because it will matter to you in a very personal way if you're not in their world, because your rights will change and you won't get more of them. Yeah. You'll get less.
He told us he was reminded during this year-long experience just how much local elections matter. The latest episode of this podcast just dropped this week. There's going to be 8 total, we're told, plus some bonus episodes. But there's no way, obviously, that we could get into all of what they cover. For example, in the podcast, you'll learn why Pastor Doug Wilson was almost run out of town over his views on slavery, what the church considers non-Christian, and the numerous accusations of sexual assault within the church and school. You'll also hear from the women who have left the church because of how they were treated.